Oh, let me grab my remote. Let it be. Loop E. No, I don't want to watch that. No, bruh. Go back. Back, I tell you. Unkerson. What's wrong with it? Why is this thing tripping, man? Fuck it, I'm about to put it on this. What's up, homies? Michael! How you doing, buddy? From the UK, all right. That's what I'm talking about. I love you too, man. For sure. Bro, I'm trying to get through this book. Why is it so loud? Like, how many minutes till midnight? Yeah, we're trying to get through this book, goddamn. How many minutes to midnight? Thank you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I just be doing my thing, you feel me? Just be having a blast. But, hold on. What's going on with you, Catherine? Hey! No, I do not. And I will do more Metallica for sure. But no, I do not believe in Satan at all. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in heaven and hell, angels and demons. I'm an atheistic Satanist. Meaning I don't believe in invisible deities. All right, how many minutes to midnight? He would do this. He loves doing this. Like, I swear this is not the first time he has made this comparison or he has made this. Because what he's about to do is assume that there's like an alien from like a different planet and he's trying to give a report on what the humans have been up to or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, he has no stake in the game. He's not a fucking human. He doesn't know humans. You know what I'm saying? He's just here to report. I'm just here to, like, see what's going on, write it down, and then report back. And this is some of the stuff that he might, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so here's the hypothetical. If some extraterrestrial species were compiling a history of Homo sapiens, they might well break their calendar into two eras. The before nuclear weapons era, and then the nuclear weapons era. Now, the nuclear weapons era, of course, opened on August 6th, 1945, the first day of the countdown to what may be the inglorious end of this species, which attained the intelligence to discover the effective means to destroy itself, but, so the evidence suggests, not the moral and intellectual capacity to control its own worst instincts. Day one of the nuclear weapons era was marked by the success of Little Boy, a simple atomic bomb. On day 4, Nagasaki experienced the technological triumph of Fat Man, a more sophisticated design. 5 days later came what the official Air Force history calls the grand finale, a 1,000 plane raid, no mean logistical achievement, by the way, on Japan's cities, killing many thousands of people with leaflets falling among the bombs that read, "Japan has surrendered." President Truman announced that surrender before the last B-29 returned to its base. Those were the auspicious opening days of the nuclear weapons era. As we now enter its 70th year, we should be contemplating with wonder the fact that we have even survived. We can only guess how many years remain. Some reflections on these grim prospects were offered by General Lee Butler, former head of the U.S. Strategic Command, which controls nuclear weapons and strategy. 20 years ago, he wrote that we had so far survived the NWE, the nuclear weapons era, by some combination of skill, luck, and divine intervention, and I suspect the latter in greatest proportion. Reflecting further on his long career in developing nuclear weapons strategies and organizing the forces to implement them efficiently, he described himself ruefully as having been among the most avid of these keepers of the faith in nuclear weapons. But, he continued, he had come to realize that it was now in his burden to declare with all of his conviction, "I can muster that in my judgment they served us extremely ill." He asked, by what authority do succeeding generations of leaders in the nuclear weapons states usurp the power to dictate the odds of continued life on our planet? Most urgently, why does such breathtaking audacity persist at a moment when we should stand trembling in the face of our folly and united in our commitment to abolish its most deadly manifestations? Butler termed the U.S. Strategic Plan of 1960 that called for an automated all-out strike on the communist world, quote, "the single most absurd and irresponsible document I have ever reviewed in my life," end quote. Its Soviet counterpart was probably even more insane, but it is important to bear in mind that there are competitors, not least among them the easy acceptance of extraordinary threats to survival. According to received doctrine, in scholarship and general intellectual discourse, the prime goal of state policy is, quote, "national security." There's ample evidence, however, that the doctrine of national security does not encompass the security of the population. The record reveals that, for instance, the threat of instant destruction by nuclear weapons has not ranked high among the concerns of the planners. That much was demonstrated early on and remains true to the present moment. In the early days of the nuclear weapons era, the United States was overwhelmingly powerful and enjoyed remarkable security. It controlled the hemisphere and Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and the opposite sides of those oceans as well. Long before World War II, it had already become by far the richest country in the world with incomparable advantages. Its economy boomed during the war, while other industrial societies were devastated or severely weakened. By the opening of the new era, the United States possessed about half of total world wealth and an even greater percentage of its manufacturing capacity. There was, however, a potential threat: intercontinental ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads. That threat was discussed in the standard scholarly study of nuclear policies carried out with access to high-level sources. Danger and Survival, Choices About the Bomb in the High 50 Years by... I'm sorry. I'm getting these sentences on. Let me back up. The threat was discussed in the standard scholarly study of nuclear policies carried out with access to high-level sources. Danger and Survival, Choices About the Bomb in the First 50 Years by McGeorge Bundy, National Security Advisor during the Kennedy and Johnson presidencies. Bundy wrote that, quote, "the timely development of ballistic missiles during the Eisenhower administration is one of the best achievements of those 8 years. Yet it is well to begin with the recognition that both the United States and the Soviet Union might be in much less nuclear danger today if those missiles had never been developed." He then added an instructive comment, quote, "I am aware of no serious contemporary proposal in or out of either government, the ballistic missiles that should somehow be banned by agreement." In short, there was apparently no thought of trying to prevent the sole serious threat to the United States, the threat of utter destruction in a nuclear war with the Soviet Union. Could that threat have been taken off the table? We cannot, of course, be sure, but it was hardly inconceivable. The Russians, far behind in industrial development and technological sophistication, were in a far more threatening environment. Hence, they were significantly more vulnerable to such weapons systems than the United States was. There might have been opportunities to explore the possibilities of disarmament, but in the extraordinary hysteria of the day, they could hardly have ever been perceived. And that hysteria has indeed extraordinary was indeed I'm sorry, and that hysteria was indeed extraordinary. An examination of the rhetoric of central official documents of that moment, like National Security Council paper NSC-68, remains quite shocking. One indication of possible opportunities to blunt the threat was a remarkable proposal by Soviet ruler Joseph Stalin in 1952, offering to allow Germany to be unified with free elections on the condition that it would not then join a hostile military alliance. That was hardly an extreme condition in light of the history of the past half century, during which Germany alone had practically destroyed Russia twice, exacting a terrible toll. Stalin's proposal was taken seriously by the respected political commentators James Warburg, but otherwise mostly ignored or ridiculed at the time. Recent scholarship has begun to take a different view. The bitterly anti-communist Soviet scholar Adam Ulam has taken the status of Stalin's proposal to be in, quote, unresolved mystery. Washington's, quote, wasted little effort in flatly rejecting Moscow's initiative, he wrote, on grounds that were embarrassingly unconvincing. The political, scholarly, and general intellectual failure left open the basic question, Ulam added. Was Stalin genuinely ready to sacrifice the newly created German Democratic Republic on the altar of real democracy, with consequences for world peace and for American security that could have been enormous? Reviewing recent research in Soviet archives, one of the most respected Cold War scholars, Melvin Leffler, observed that many scholars were surprised to discover that Lavrenti Beria, the sinister, brutal head of the Russian secret police, proposed that the Kremlin offer the West a deal on the unification and neutralization of Germany, agreeing to sacrifice the East German communist regime to reduce East-West tensions and improve internal political and economic conditions in Russia, opportunities that were squandered in favor of securing German participation in NATO. Under the circumstances, it is not impossible that agreements might have been reached that would have protected the security of the American population from the greatest threat of the horizon. But that possibility apparently was not considered, a striking indication of how slight a role authentic security plays in state policy. The Cuban Missile Crisis and beyond. That conclusion was understood repeatedly in the years that followed. When Nikita Khrushchev took control in Russia in the years after Stalin's death, he recognized that the USSR could not compete militarily with the United States, the richest and most powerful country in history, with incomparable advantages. If it ever hoped to escape its economic backwardness and the devastating effects of the last World War, the Soviet Union would need to reverse the arms race. Accordingly, Khrushchev proposed sharp mutual reductions in offensive weapons. The incoming Kennedy administration considered the offer and rejected it, instead turning to rapid military expansion, even though it was already far in the lead. The late Kenneth Waltz, supported by other strategic analysts with close connections to U.S. intelligence, wrote then that the Kennedy administration, quote, undertook the largest strategic and conventional peacetime military buildup the world has yet seen, even as Khrushchev was trying at once to carry through a major reduction in the conventional forces and to follow a strategy of minimum deterrence. And we did so even though the balance of strategic weapons greatly favored the United States. Again, the government opted for harming national security while enhancing state power. The Soviet reaction to the U.S. building of those years was to place nuclear weapons in Cuba in October 1962 to try to reduce the balance at least slightly. The move was also motivated in part by Kennedy's terrorist campaign against Fidel Castro's Cuba, which was scheduled to lead to invasion that very month, as Russia and Cuba may have known. The ensuing missile crisis was the most dangerous moment in history, in the words of historian Arthur M. Schlesinger, Kennedy's advisor and confidant. Of no slight significance is the fact that Kennedy is highly praised for his cool courage and statesmanship in his decisions made at the peak of the crisis, even though he had needlessly placed the population at enormous risk for reasons of state and of personal image. 10 years later, in the last days of the 1973 Israeli-Arab War, Henry Kissinger, then National Security Advisor to President Nixon, called a nuclear alert. The purpose was to warn the Russians not to interfere with his delicate diplomatic maneuvers designed to ensure an Israeli victory. And the maneuvers were indeed delicate. The United States and Russia had jointly imposed a ceasefire, but Kissinger secretly informed the Israelis that they could ignore it. Hence, the need for the nuclear alert to frighten the Russians away. The security of Americans retained its usual status. 10 years after that, the Reagan administration launched operations to probe Russian air defenses by simulating air and naval attacks and a high-level nuclear alert that the Russians were intended to detect. These actions were undertaken at a very tense moment. Washington was deploying Pershing II strategic missiles in Europe with a 10-minute flight time to Moscow. President Reagan had also announced the Strategic Defense Initiative, the quote Star Wars program, which the Russians understood to be effectively a first strike weapon, a standard interpretation of missile defense on all sides, and other tensions were rising. Naturally, these actions caused great alarm in Russia, which, unlike the United States, was quite vulnerable and had repeatedly been invaded and virtually destroyed. That led to a major war scare in 1983. Newly released archives reveal that the danger was even more severe than historians had previously assumed. A high-level U.S. intelligence study entitled The War Scare Was For Real concluded that U.S. intelligence may have underestimated Russian concerns that the threat of a Russian preventative nuclear strike. The exercises, almost became a prelude to a preventative nuclear strike, according to an account in the Journal of Strategic Studies. It was even more dangerous than that, as we learned in the fall of 2013, when the BBC reported that right in the midst of these world-threatening developments, Russia's early warning systems detected an incoming missile strike from the United States, sending its nuclear system onto the highest level alert. The protocol for the Soviet military was to retaliate with a nuclear attack of its own. Fortunately, the officer on duty decided to disobey orders and not report the warning to his superiors. He received an official reprimand, and thanks to his dereliction of duty, we're still alive to talk about it. The security of the population was no more a high priority for Reagan administration planners than for their predecessors, and so it continues to the present, even putting aside the numerous near-catastrophic nuclear accidents that have occurred over the years, many reviewed in Eric Schlessinger's chilling study called Command and Control. In other words, it's hard to contest General Butler's conclusions. Survival in the post-Cold War era. The record of post-Cold War actions and doctrines is hardly reassuring either. Every self-respecting president has to have a doctrine. The Clinton doctrine was encapsulated in the slogan, multilateral when we can, unilateral when we must. In congressional testimony, the phrase, when we must, was explained more fully. The United States is entitled to resort to the unilateral use of military power to ensure uninhibited access to key markets, energy supplies, and strategic resources. Meanwhile, Stratcom in the Clinton era produced an important study entitled Essentials of Post-Cold War Deterrence, issued well after the Soviet Union had collapsed and Clinton was extending President George H.W. Bush's program of expanding NATO to the east in violation of verbal promises to Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev with reverberations to the present. That study was concerned with the role of nuclear weapons in the post-Cold War era. A central conclusion, that the United States must maintain the right to launch a first strike even against non-nuclear states. Furthermore, nuclear weapons must always be at the ready because they, quote, cast a shadow over any crisis or conflict, end quote. They were, that is, constantly being used just as you're using a gun if you aim but don't fire one while robbing a store. Stratcom went on to advise that planners would not be too rational about determining what the opponent values the most. Anything is a possible target. It hurts to portray ourselves as too fully rational and cool-headed that the United States may become irrational and vindictive if its vital interests are attacked should be a part of the national persona we project. It is beneficial for our strategic posture if some elements may appear to be potentially out of control, thus posing a constant threat of nuclear attack, a severe violation of the UN Charter if anyone cares. Not much here about the noble goals constantly proclaimed, or for that matter, the obligation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty to make good faith efforts to eliminate this scourge of the earth. What resounds, rather, is an adaptation of Hilaire Belloc's famous couplet about the Maxim gun. To quote the great African historian Shin Waizu, "Whatever happens, we have got the atom bomb, and they have not." After Clinton came, of course, George W. Bush, whose broad endorsement of preventative war easily encompasses Japan's attack in December 1941 on military bases in 2 U.S. overseas possessions, at a time when Japanese militarists were well aware that B-17 flying fortresses were being rushed off assembly lines and deployed to those bases with the intent to, quote, to burn out the industrial heart of the empire with firebomb attacks on the teeming bamboo ant heaps of Honshu and Kyushu. That was how the pre-war plans were described by their architect, Air Force General Claire Chennault, with the enthusiastic approval of President Franklin Roosevelt, Secretary of State Cordell Hull, and Army Chief of Staff General George Marshall. Then came Barack Obama with pleasant words about working to abolish nuclear weapons, combined with plans to spend $1 trillion on the U.S. nuclear arsenal over the next 30 years, a percentage of the nuclear budget comparable to spending for procurement of new strategic systems in the 1980s under President Ronald Reagan, according to a study by the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. Obama has also not hesitated to play with fire for political gain. Take, for example, the capture and assassination of Osama bin Laden by Navy SEALs. Obama brought it up with pride in an important speech on national security in May 2013. The speech was widely covered, but one crucial paragraph was ignored. Obama hailed the operation, but added that it could not be the norm. The reason, he said, was that the risks were immense. The SEALs might have been embroiled in an extended firefight, even though, by luck, that didn't happen. The cost to our relationship with Pakistan and the backlash among the Pakistani public over encroachment on their territory was severe. Let us now add a few details. The SEALs were ordered to fight their way out if apprehended. They would not have been left to their fate if embroiled in an extended firefight. The full force of the U.S. military would have been used to extricate them. Pakistan has a powerful, well-trained military, highly protective of state sovereignty. It also has nuclear weapons, and Pakistani specialists are concerned about the possible penetration of their nuclear security system by jihadi elements. It's also no secret that the population has been embittered and radicalized by Washington's drone terror attack and other policies. While the SEALs were still in the bin Laden compound, Pakistani Chief of Staff Ashfaq Pervez Kayani was informed of the raid and ordered the military to confront any unidentified aircraft, which he assumed would be from India. Meanwhile, in Kabul, U.S. War Commander General David Petraeus ordered warplanes to respond if the Pakistanis scrambled their fighter jets. As Obama said, by luck, the worst didn't happen. Though, it could have been quite ugly, but the risks were faced without noticeable concern or subsequent comment. As General Butler observed, it is a near miracle that we have escaped destruction so far, and the longer we tempt fate, the less likely it is that we can hope for divine intervention to perpetuate the miracle. Chapter 16. If y'all wanted to know what book this is, it's Who Rules the World by Noam Chomsky, and we're on chapter 16. On August 26, 2014, Israel and the Palestinian Authority both accepted a ceasefire agreement after a 50-day Israeli assault on Gaza that left 2,100 Palestinians dead and vast landscapes of destruction behind. The agreement called for an end to military action by both Israel and Hamas, as well as an easing of the Israeli siege that had strangled Gaza for many years. This was, however, just the most recent in a series of ceasefire agreements reached after each of Israel's periodic escalations of its unremitting assault on Gaza. Throughout this period, The terms of these agreements remained essentially the same. The regular pattern has been for Israel to then disregard whatever agreement is in place, while Hamas observe it until a sharp increase in Israeli violence elicits a Hamas response, which is followed by an even fiercer Israeli brutality. These escalations are often called mowing the lawn in Israeli parlance, though the 2014 Israeli operation was more accurately described by an appalled senior U.S. military officer as removing the topsoil. The first of this series of truces was the Agreement on Movement and Access between Israel and the Palestinian Authority in November 2005. It called for the opening of a crossing between Gaza and Egypt at Rafah for the export of goods and the transit of people, the continuous operation of crossing between Israel and Gaza for the import-export of goods and the transit of people, and the reduction of obstacles to movement within the West Bank, bus and truck convoys between the West Bank and Gaza, the building of a seaport in Gaza, and the reopening of the airport in Gaza that Israeli bombing had demolished. The agreement was reached shortly after Israel withdrew its settlers and military forces from Gaza. The motive for the withdrawal was explained with engaging cynicism by Dov Weisglass, a confidant of then Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who was in charge of negotiating and implementing it. Summarizing the purpose of the operation, Weisglass explained that the disengagement is actually formaldehyde. It supplies the amount of formaldehyde that is necessary so that there will not be a political process with the Palestinians. In the background, Israeli hawks recognize that instead of investing substantial resources in maintaining a few thousand settlers in illegal subsidized communities in devastated Gaza, it made more sense to transfer them to illegal subsidized communities in areas of the West Bank and Israel intended to keep. The disengagement was depicted as a noble effort to pursue peace, but the reality was quite different. Israel never relinquished control of Gaza and is accordingly recognized as the occupying power by the United Nations, the United States, and other states, apart from Israel, of course. In their comprehensive history of settlement in the occupied territories, Israeli scholars Edith Zertal and Akiva Eldar describe what actually happened when that country disengaged. The ruined territory was not released for even a single day from Israel's military grip or from the price of the occupation that the inhabitants paid every day. After the disengagement, Israel left behind scorched earth, devastated services, and people with neither a present nor a future. The settlements were destroyed in an ungenerous move by an unenlightened occupier, which in fact continued to control the territory and kill and harass its inhabitants by means of its formidable military might. Israel soon had a pretext for violating the November agreement more severely. In January 2006, the Palestinians committed a serious crime. They voted the wrong way and carefully monitored free elections, placing the parliament in the hands of Hamas. Israel and the United States immediately imposed harsh sanctions, telling the world very clearly what they mean by democracy promotion, and soon began planning a military coup to overthrow the unacceptable elected government, a familiar procedure. When Hamas preempted the coup in 2007, the siege of Gaza grew far more severe, and regular Israeli military attacks commenced. Voting the wrong way in a free election was bad enough, but preempting a U.S. planned military coup proved to be an unpardonable offense. A new ceasefire agreement was reached in June 2008. It again called for opening the border crossings to allow the transfer of all goods that were banned and restricted to go into Gaza. Israel formally agreed, but immediately announced that it would not abide by the agreement until Hamas released Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier it held. Israel itself has a long history of kidnapping civilians in Lebanon and on the high seas and holding them for lengthy periods without credible charges, sometimes as hostages. Imposing civilians on dubious charges or none at all is also a regular practice in the territories Israel controls. Israel not only maintained the siege in violation of the 2008 ceasefire agreement, but did so with extreme rigor, even preventing the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which cares for the huge number of official refugees in Gaza, from replenishing its stocks. On November 4th, while the media were focused on the U.S. presidential election, Israeli troops entered Gaza and killed half a dozen Hamas militants. That elicited a Hamas missile response and an exchange of fire. All the deaths were Palestinian. In late December, Hamas offered to renew the ceasefire. Israel considered the offer but rejected it, preferring instead to launch Operation Cast Lead, a 3-week incursion with the full power of the Israeli military into the Gaza Strip, resulting in atrocities well documented by international and Israeli human rights organizations. On January 8, 2009, while Cast Lead was in full fury, the UN Security Council passed a unanimous resolution, with the United States abstaining, of course, calling for an immediate ceasefire leading to a full Israeli withdrawal, unimpeded provision through Gaza of food, fuel, and medical treatment, and intensified international arrangements to prevent arms and ammunition smuggling. A new ceasefire agreement was indeed reached, similar to the previous ones, but again, it was never really observed and broke down completely with the next major mowing the lawn episode, Operation Pillar of Defense in November 2012. What happened in the interim can be illustrated by the casualty figures from January 2012 to the launching of that operation. 1 Israeli killed by fire from Gaza, 78 Palestinians killed by Israeli fire. The first act of Operation Pillar of Defense was the murder of Ahmed Jabari, a high official of the military wing of Hamas. Aluf Bin, editor-in-chief of Israel's leading newspaper, described Jabari as Israel's subcontractor in Gaza, who enforced relative quiet there for more than 5 years. As always, there was a pretext for the assassination, but the likely reason was provided by Israeli peace activist Gershon Baskin. He had been involved in direct negotiations with Jabari for years and reported that hours before he was assassinated, Jabari received the draft of a permanent truce agreement with Israel, which included mechanisms for maintaining the ceasefire in the case of a flare-up between Israel and the factions in the Gaza Strip. There's a long record of Israeli actions designed to deter the threat of a diplomatic settlement. After this exercise in mowing the lawn, a ceasefire agreement was reached yet again, repeating the now standard terms. It called for a cessation of military action by both sides and the effective ending of the siege of Gaza, with Israel opening the crossings and facilitating the movements of people and transfer of goods and refraining from restricting residents' free movement and targeting residents in border areas. What happened next was reviewed by Nathan Thrall, senior Middle East analyst for the International Crisis Group. Israeli intelligence recognized that Hamas was observing the terms of the ceasefire. Israel, though, therefore, saw little incentive in upholding its end of the deal. In the 3 months following the ceasefire, its forces made regular incursions into Gaza, strafed Palestinian farmers and those collecting scrap and rubble across the border, and fired at boats preventing fishermen from accessing the majority of Gaza's waters. In other words, the siege never ended. Crossings were repeatedly shut, so-called buffer zones inside Gaza from which Palestinians are barred and which include a third or more of the Strip's limited arable land were reinstated. Imports declined, exports were blocked, and fewer Gazans were given exit permits to Israel and the West Bank. Operation Protective Edge. Hold up. So matters continued until April 2014, when an important event took place. The two major Palestinian groupings, Gaza-based Hamas and the Fatah-dominated Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, signed a unity agreement. Hamas made major concessions. The unity agreement contained none of its members or allies. In substantial measure, as Thrall observes, Hamas turned over governance of Gaza to the PA. Several thousand PA security forces were sent there, and the PA placed its guards at borders and crossings with no reciprocal positions for Hamas in the West Bank security apparatus. Finally, the unity government accepted the 3 conditions that Washington and the European Union had long demanded: nonviolence, adherence to past agreements, and the recognition of Israel. Israel was infuriated. Its government declared at once that it would refuse to deal with the unity government and canceled negotiations. Its fury mounted when the United States, along with the rest of the world, signaled support for the unity government. Now, there are good reasons why Israel opposes the unification of Palestinians. One is that the Hamas-Fatah conflict has provided a useful pretext for refusing to engage in serious negotiations. How can one negotiate with a divided entity? More significantly, for more than 20 years, Israel has been committed to separating Gaza from the West Bank in violation of the Oslo Accords, which declare Gaza and the West Bank to be an inseparable territorial unity. A look at a map explains the rationale. Separated from Gaza, any West Bank enclaves left to Palestinians have no access to the outside world. Furthermore, Israel has been systematically taking over the Jordan Valley, driving out Palestinians, establishing settlements, sinking wells, and otherwise ensuring that the region, about 1/3 of the West Bank, including much of its arable land, will ultimately be integrated into Israel, along with the other regions that Israel is taking over. Hence, remaining Palestinian cantons will be completely imprisoned. Unification with Gaza would interfere with these plans, which trace back to the early days of the occupation and have had steady support from the major political blocs, including from figures usually portrayed as doves, like former President Shimon Peres, one of the architects of settlement deep in the West Bank. As usual, a pretext was needed to move on to the next escalation. Such an occasion arose with the brutal murder of 3 Israeli boys from the settler community in the West Bank. An 18-day rampage primarily targeting Hamas followed. On September 2nd, Haaretz, which is one of the newspapers, I believe, reported that after intensive interrogations, the Israeli security services concluded the abduction of the teenagers was carried out by an independent cell with no known direct links to Hamas. By then, the 18-day rampage had succeeded in undermining the feared unity government. Hamas finally reacted with its first rockets in 18 months, providing Israel with a pretext to launch Operation Protective Edge on July 8th. That 50-day assault provided the most extreme exercise in mowing the lawn so far. Operation still to be named. Israel is in a fine position today to reverse its decades-old policy of separating Gaza from the West Bank and observe a major ceasefire agreement for the first time. At least temporarily, the threat of democracy in neighboring Egypt has been diminished, and the brutal Egyptian military dictatorship of General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is a welcome ally for Israel in maintaining control over Gaza. With the Palestinian Unity government placing U.S.-trained forces of the Palestinian Authority in control of Gaza's borders and governance, possibly shifting into the hands of the PA, which demands on Israel for its survival as well as for its finances, Israel might feel that there is little to fear from some limited form of autonomy for the enclaves that remain to Palestinians. There is also some truth to the observation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said, quote, "Many elements in the region understand today that in the struggle in which they are threatened, Israel is not an enemy, but a partner." Akiva Eldar, Israel's leading diplomatic correspondent, adds, however, that all the elements in the region also understand that there is no brave and comprehensive diplomatic move on the horizon without an agreement on the establishment of a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders and a just agreed upon solution to the refugee problem. That is not on Israel's agenda, he points out. Some knowledgeable Israeli commentators, notably columnist Danny Rubenstein, believe that Israel is poised to reverse course and relax its stranglehold on Gaza. We'll see. The record of these past years suggests otherwise, and the first signs are not auspicious. As operation ended, Israel announced its largest appropriation of West Bank land in 30 years, almost 1,000 acres. Israel Radio reported that the takeover was a response to the killing of the 3 Jewish teenagers by Hamas militants. A Palestinian boy was burned to death in retaliation for the murders, but no Israeli land was handed over to the Palestinians, nor was there any reaction when an Israeli soldier murdered 10-year-old Khalil Anadi on a quiet street in a refugee camp near Hebron, and then drove away in his Jeep as the child bled to death. Anadi was one of the 23 Palestinians, including 3 children, killed by Israeli occupation forces in the West Bank during the Gaza onslaught, according to UN statistics, along with more than 2,000 wounded, 38% by live fire. None of those killed were endangering soldiers' lives, Israeli journalist Gideon Levy reported. To none of this is there any reaction, just as there was no reaction while Israel killed, on average, more than 2 Palestinian children a week for the past 14 years. They are unpeople, after all. It is commonly claimed on all sides that if the 2-state settlement is dead as a result of Israel's takeover of Palestinian lands, then the outcome will be one state west of the Jordan River. Some Palestinians welcome this outcome, anticipating that they can then conduct a civil rights struggle for equal rights on the model of South Africa under apartheid. Many Israeli commentators warn that the resulting demographic problem of more Arab than Jewish births and diminishing Jewish immigration will undermine their hope for a democratic Jewish state. But these widespread beliefs are dubious. The realistic alternative to a two-state settlement is that Israel will continue to carry forward the plans it has been implementing for years, taking over whatever it is of value to the West Bank, while avoiding Palestinian population concentrations and removing Palestinians from the areas it is integrating into Israel. That should preempt the dreaded demographic problem. These basic policies have been underway since the 1967 conquest, following a principle enunciated by then Defense Minister Moshe Dayan, one of the Israeli leaders most sympathetic to the Palestinians. He informed his party colleagues that they should tell Palestinian refugees in the West Bank, "We have no solution. You shall continue to live like dogs, and whoever wishes may leave, and we will see where this process leads." The suggestion was natural within the overriding conception articulated in 1972 by future President Chaim Herzog. I do not deny the Palestinians a place or stand or opinion on every matter, but certainly I am not prepared to consider them as partners in any respect in a land that has been consecrated in the hands of our nation for thousands of years. For the Jews of this land, there cannot be any partner. Dayan also called for Israel's permanent rule over the occupied territories. When Netanyahu expresses the same stand today, he's not breaking new ground. For a century, the Zionist colonization of Palestine has proceeded primarily on the pragmatic principle of the quiet establishment of facts on the ground, which the world was to ultimately come to accept. It has been a highly successful policy. There's every reason to expect it to persist as long as the United States provides the necessary military, economic, diplomatic, and ideological support. For those concerned with the rights of the brutalized Palestinians, there can be no higher priority than working to change U.S. policies. Not an idle dream by any means. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm starting to get a headache and my neck hurts. But we're on chapter 17 now, called "The U.S. is a Leading Terrorist State." The U.S. is a leading terrorist state, which just means that when it comes to terrorists in the world, we are the most brutal, we are the most savage, we are the most depraved, we're the most evil, the most wicked. And, as I suppose luck would have it, if you want to call it luck, we're also the most powerful and the richest. So you have the most powerful, richest, depraved, evil, wicked, seditious, murderous, ravenous fucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's us. You know what I mean? Like, that's us. Al-Qaeda ain't got shit on us. Like, period. Like, what? Them motherfuckers ain't got shit on us, bro. We ain't never been afraid of Al-Qaeda. Ever. We ain't never been afraid of ISIS. Why would we be? We got all the weapons. We got over 800 military bases all over the world. No other country, no other developed nation has that many bases all over the world. The only other nation close to us is Russia, and they only got like a few, like a handful, like less than 10 or some shit like that. That's it. Most other countries don't have military bases in other countries. We got over 800. Nigga, we got the motherfucking globe surrounded. You know what I'm saying? With all the money, all the weapons, all the power, all the influence. Ain't nobody fucking with us, bro. Like, I don't know why they keep trying to act like there's a threat out here in the world that we need to guard against. Motherfucker, the threat is us. The threat is coming from the inside the house. You know what I'm saying? We are the murderers. When you walk in the middle of the motherfucking night in a sketchy neighborhood in an alley, a dark, terribly lit alley, we the motherfuckers you need to fear. You know what I'm saying? It's us. It's not some brown person with a hijab or a fucking turban on. You know what I mean? It's not some transgender motherfucker. It's not some black dude. Are you serious? Really? No. The terror is us. We the motherfucking bloodthirsty savages. in the name of U.S. hegemonic supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody fucking with us. That's what it kills me about this country. Like, we're so like fear in the media. Be scared of black people. Be scared of transgender people. Be scared of Democrats. Be scared of Republicans. Be scared of MAGA. Be scared of Trump. Be scared, blah, blah. Be scared. Be afraid. Be terrified. Worry and shit. Fucking convoys and fucking they're coming over the border and you know what I mean? Like all this shit just to keep us peasants fighting amongst one another. You know what I'm saying? I mean, once we understand there's no such thing as like Democrats, Republicans, Independents, you know what I'm saying? There's none of that. You are either owner capitalist class or you're not. That's it. I can't stress that enough. Like I will probably say this in every live I am in. You know what I'm saying? If you don't own the means of production, then you are a peasant. You know what I'm saying? You a peasant. I'm a peasant. Most likely your parents are peasants. Your kids are peasants. Your neighbors are peasants. The motherfucker across the street is a peasant. We all peasant because we all gotta fucking go and work to get money. You know what I'm saying? We gotta go leave the house and do shit. You know, we gotta get dressed. You know what I'm saying? If you're a YouTube creator, content creator, and that's how you get paid, you gotta make videos. You know what I'm saying? You gotta like get equipment and fucking, you know what I'm saying? And you gotta like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you gotta edit. You know what I'm saying? Lighting. You gotta write scripts, like all kinds of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta work. You flip burgers at McDonald's. You e-commerce shop for a motherfucker. You DoorDash, whatever the fuck you do. Like, you gotta go to work. You're a peasant. Period. Like, if you can't just sit down and the money works for you to make more money for you, you ain't did shit. Like, you ain't gonna do shit. Then you a peasant. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't fucking matter if you're a fucking Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't matter. Like, none of that shit matters. It doesn't. Like, it just doesn't fucking matter. You know why it don't matter? Because all the powerful people in Washington, both Democrats and Republicans, take huge bribes or campaign donations. They take huge bribes from these motherfucking corporations who make all the decisions. That's who they work for. They work on the behalf of the corporations, on behalf of Honeywell and Raytheon and Boeing and BP and fucking Texaco, and like they work on their behalf. Amazon and you know, they don't work for us. They never have. You know what I'm saying? That's who they work for. Period. So you know what I mean? Like, and so in order for them to keep doing what they're fucking doing and have been doing, at least since the Second World War, they have to get you on board with this shit. And you are dumbass. You know what I'm saying? And you are. I was a dumbass. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've been a dumbass too for years. I'm 41. I've been a dumbass for at least 35 years. You know what I'm saying? At least easy. You know what I'm saying? It took a bunch of reading and corroborating and researching to be like, to really like wake the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's basically when I got it. Like, they want to keep you stupid. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because God forbid you know. Because then if you know, you might tell somebody else. And then if y'all tell enough people, y'all might want to actually like act upon what y'all talking about. You know what I'm saying? And by that, I mean, you might actually organize. You might actually unionize and perhaps revolutionize. You know what I'm saying? You might actually fight back, assert the power that you have being a laborer. Because what are they going to do? What are they going to come working? What are they going to come do your job? The president, CEO of your company going to come do your fucking job for you, yeah, right? You probably don't even know how to do the motherfucking job, let alone come do it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the whole shift, like, this ain't no joke or some shit. Where the cameras at? What is this, an undercover boss or some shit? Nah, motherfucker, they ain't about to come do the job. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have enormous power because you know this. Like, you know this. You know this. You know that whatever job you do, your bosses can't do it. I'm not saying your immediate supervisor. Your immediate supervisor might be able to do it. But I mean, like, the CEO, the owner of the company, 9 times out of 10 cannot do what you do. So if all of you who work for that company said, you know, we're not coming back. We're done. Either you pay us a living wage or we're out of here. You know what I mean? Not every company can afford to just hire scabs. I mean, what are they gonna do? If everybody at every job decided to just not show up to work unless you just gave us more money and benefits and time off, like shit that we not only deserve, not only are entitled to, you know what I'm saying? But we've already worked for. We've made you motherfuckers super rich. Like, it's not enough that you just doing all right in life. You good. You know what I'm saying? You don't want for shit. You know what I mean? It's not enough that you have that. You gotta have 2 yachts, motherfucker. While we can I got a bullshit truck. You know what I'm saying? I need new tires and shit. This motherfucker got 2 yachts. You trying to tell me you ain't got enough money to pay every employee at your company a living wage? Like, motherfucker, like time off. Like, we ain't even gotta talk about time off or insurance and none of that shit. You just can't pay me a living wage? Bullshit. Especially if you're a company like Walmart, Amazon. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, y'all niggas got money, bro. Cut it out. I mean, look at that. Because it's not like it's one person that's rich. It's the shareholders are rich. You know what I'm saying? Uber stupid wealthy. You know what I mean? So, of course, the fucking Bezos is fucking pissing money. Like, he got more money than he'll ever be able to spend. Ever. In 20,000 lifetimes. He won't be able to spend all that money. That's no exaggeration. Like 20,000 lifetimes. He will not be able to spend all the money he's currently breaking. That means his kids won't be able to spend all that money. And their kids won't be able to spend all that money. And their kids won't be able to spend the money. But you can't get a little bit just to live today? You know what I'm saying? Like, you mean to tell me a motherfucker can get you just $25 an hour? And that's only if you're single. Like, if you one person, when you fill out your W-4 or whatever, you said, oh, I'm one person, $25 an hour, period. You walk in the door, fresh out of high school, $25 an hour. So obviously, again, senior, you got more experience or whatever. Of course, we're gonna pay you more. Of course, you know what I'm saying? Because you got it. You got it. You're not gonna go fucking broke. Maybe you can't buy a 3rd yacht. You just have to be content with the 2 you have. You know what I'm saying? Oh well, all right. I don't even want a yacht. Like, I just want to be able to have the comfort that you have. That's it. Because I actually work for it. You actually work for it. Them motherfuckers don't work for it. They just get the fuck up and go spend. Like, you work for your money. You work for it. You mean to tell me Jeff Bezos works, what, 308,000 times more harder than you do? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck, no you don't. None of them motherfuckers work harder than you work at work. And I don't give a fuck what you do. I don't care what it is. They don't do it all day. They don't do whatever it is that you hate doing all day, no matter how hard it is. They don't have to do it. So why should you? And you don't get none of the benefits of this shit. You did a bullshit, crummy ass, piddly ass peanut wage. You know what I'm saying? Because it is that. I don't give a fuck what you think you're making. It's not, again, what you deserve. They've been stealing our wages from us for far too long. It's like, I'm tired of talking about it. Like, I'm past talking about it. Like-minded people, we need to organize. We need to unionize. You know what I'm saying? That is our only mechanism to fight back. Because we're not rich. If we was rich, then, hey, money talks. You know what I'm saying? But since we don't have that, then the only thing we have is the power in numbers, is our organizational capacity to fight back. Because again, what are they going to do? What are they going to come? What, you going to come pack the orders yourself, Bezos? You going to go pick the shit? You know what I'm saying? What you going to fold the boxes? Yeah, right, motherfucker. You going to pull the pack? You going to go get the produce truck, the meat and produce truck? You about to get that shit to Walmart? You about to go there with your pallet jack and pull that shit off the motherfucking truck? Yeah, right. You're not about to do that shit. You know they're not. You know they ain't. Get the fuck out of here. They're not, what, somebody from the Walton family gonna come to Walmart? Welcome to Walmart. Let me check your receipt. Make sure you're paying for it. Beep, beep, beep. Hold on, let me get... Yeah, right, bro. They're not about to come do that shit. What if everybody at every Walmart in America just said, you know, not coming to work unless we get A, B, and C? What they gonna do? They gonna have to capitulate. Man, about to come. And even if they did say, like, fuck it, we'll go work. How long can these motherfuckers hold out? Motherfucker, we'll hold out as long as it takes. Because you'll do that shit for like one day. You'll be like, oh, fuck no. Oh, fuck no. What are they asking for? Just give it to them. Give it to them. God forbid, give it to them. We can't, no. You know. The motherfucker take one order from a motherfucker. I don't care where you work at, bro. You already know what I'm talking about. You know the owners and the CEOs and the shareholders, they ain't about to come do their job. So if all y'all said we ain't coming, what are they gonna do? Yeah, we'll cripple the economy, but so what? We don't benefit from the economy. They keep telling you that to make you feel like, oh, well, you'll be fucked up. Well, maybe a little bit in food prices, gas prices and shit. But we've never actually benefited from the economy. You know what I'm saying? We don't benefit from Wall Street, none of that shit. Because what do they do with the money when the economy's booming? What are they doing? Investing it back into us? Get the fuck out. No, they're not. They're keeping that shit, and they're probably privatizing more shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, nah. We gotta fight back, y'all. We gotta stop this bullshit, just taking it up the ass, because I guess that's just the way it is. Yay, capitalism. No, it don't have to be that way. Fuck that. Because in any situation within this system, we are naturally socialistic. Just naturally. Like, this is how we are. Like, we just naturally look out for one another. You know what I'm saying? And look out and like, almost like, get excited about looking out for each other. Like, being able to, like, how good it feels to be able to help someone in need. Capitalism ain't about helping nobody in need unless you got the money for it. You got the money for it? I help you. You need some help? How much you gonna pay me to help you? You know what I'm saying? That's capitalism. Socialism, like, you need help. What do you need? Let me help you. I may not have it, but I know somebody that can get it for you. You know what I'm saying? It's like socialism makes sure everyone is met. Everyone's needs are met. Everyone's taken care of. It doesn't matter if you have the money. Because it's not, money doesn't make, get the fuck out of here. Like, money didn't even always exist. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that's that made up bullshit. Like, for real, paper money ain't even real. Like, it's not even real. Like, it's not, it's a debt. Like, we so fucked up over here in America, y'all. Like, I'm just saying. I see like I lost some people when I started talking about we need socialism. But that's only because they're ignorant and they don't know what socialism means, they only know what they've been told. I heard a bitch today talk about, when we were talking about how we don't think that the government should, like, fuck with people just because they're gay or whatever, like, you know, restrict their ability to, you know, to live as freely as the rest of us non-LGBTQ associated people, you know what I'm saying, cisgendered people, if you will. And it's like, this bitch gonna say, I mean, it's in the Constitution. You already know she a Trump supporter. Just dumb as a fucking brick. I'm like, where in the fucking Constitution does it say anything about LGBTQ? Anything at all? Like, point it out. These motherfuckers think the Constitution is as thick as the Bible and it's complicated. It ain't even that thick, bruh. It's not even that long a read. You know what I'm saying? But it's in there. No, it's not. No, why would it be in there? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would it be in there? Like, that doesn't even make fucking sense. Like, that's just stupid. It's just stupid. Like, no, it's not in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't at all govern who you have sex with, like, as a consenting adult. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. Like, get the fuck. That's how ignorant they are. They don't want to learn. They don't want to know. They want to know what makes them feel good, regardless of how factual it is. They don't care about facts. Like, but anyway, like, we just gotta wake the fuck up. They want us. Look, I can't even help but engage in this shit. But it's just I keep seeing it. Like, I'm surrounded by these fucking morons. Like, they're everywhere. Motherfuckers who just refuse to read anything. Like, anything printed on paper. They're like, I can't do it. I gotta see someone's face on some television screen for me to believe it. Like, and they gotta be saying what I feel like I'm right about, you know? Because God forbid you say anything that, like, goes against what you feel like is right. You know what I mean? Because on certain shit, there is a wrong and right position. Not everything is like, oh, well, it depends person to person. No, there's certain shit that's just, it's a fact, and other shit is just hyperbole or whatever the fuck. I don't know, but it's, these motherfuckers don't accept none of it unless it, again, affirms what they already think, you know? I ain't got time for that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, look, we like-minded people need to get together. Hail Satan.